learning under Katsuri Shibata for a while was it showed me a lot of the little intricate things that I was actually doing incorrectly. It really had me rethink my fundamentals.
Sarcophagus, which he is the mummy. He is a fez wearing mummy with a red coat and really bad puns.
I was RDC's first title fight, and now it's the first international fight. So I was super excited to have an opponent from overseas.
You, petty human with the mask, tell me where Optimus Prime is.
Hey, am I seeing things, or is there like a giant talking robot looking at me right now?
Do not mess with me, human. Bring me Optimus Prime.
How about I bring you a hockey stick to the face, pal? Google!
I went up to the luxury boxes where they had a box for family and friends. And that's when I looked out and I saw like this little tiny ring in this giant sea of people, and I was like, holy fuck, I just did that. That's crazy.
I really think Superman's going to be another Blue Beetle, the Flash situation where they end up losing money. I would like to be proven wrong. I would like for it to be good.
This week's episode is sponsored by Dubby Energy Drinks. Dubby is a brand that is tried and tested with thousands of monthly people consuming their drinks. Dubby launched with just one flavor and slowly grew, and now they have created over 15 plus unique custom-made flavors that are enjoyed by thousands of monthly customers. So get off the big energy bandwagon and check out Dubby. This is how an energy drink should be. Jitter-free, crash-free, no sugars, no artificial colors or dyes, and no calories. And right now, you can get 10% off with the promo code ATPC90. From us here at the Adam Talks podcast as a special gift for you, just for checking out the show. So go to dubby.gg and use the promo code ATPC90 to get 10% off of your order now. And we're back with another awesome episode here today. We have Coach Rock, Garren Rockwell, head coach of the Lakeside Rams, on the show today. How's it going, Coach?
Man, it's going good, man. Great podcast. So, talk a little ball, talk a little football.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How did you get into coaching? I mean, was it playing at first, or was it watching first, or?
Yeah, of course, my father played high school and college ball at UCA. My family, we were a big time football family, and so I've been watching it, ever since I can remember. High school football games. I was a big growing up when I was little. I was a big 49ers fan. My dad wanted me to be a running back with the high knee action. But if you ever seen me, I'm not a running back type. So,
I
that dream
mean,
was very short lived. So,
you could be a fullback. I'm sure of that.
see, and that's what I thought too. When I started playing for, back in the day, where I'm from, and where a lot of kids at that time, we couldn't play tackle football like we do now. So you had to play flag. So, I
Yeah.
played everything, when you're flag. When I got to seventh grade, man, I stood up there and said, what position you want to play? I said, fullback. He said, no, you're going to guard. So, uh, but, the kind of show my love for football, I played, all those years. But really how I knew I wanted to get into coaching, man, was in the ninth grade. I had kind of like what we do at Lakeside. We had a caps meeting that wasn't as elaborate as we do at Lakeside, but we had our pretty much our caps meeting. I was going into the ninth grade, going to high school, and the counselor asked me, said, "What do you like?" And I said, "Well, I like football." She was like, "Well, you got like something more than that." And I said, "Well, I like history." And so she said, "Well, it sounds like you need to be a football coach and a history teacher." And so I've been knowing that since the ninth grade, man, that I wanted to be a football coach and a history teacher. I did everything in my power to do that, and now I'm at this position. So, uh, I always had a passion for football. To answer your original question, I always had a passion for football. But the ninth grade was when I knew that's what I was calling.
Now, my dad was going to go in to try to be a football coach whenever he was in college and stuff, and he had to get like a
Mhm.
physical education degree or something like that in order to do that. How does that whole
Right.
process work of learning of being a coach, learning to be a coach?
Well, a lot of it depends on which level you want to go to. And I've done all levels, except the NFL. But I coached college ball for a while. I played ball at UAM, University of Arkansas Monticello, and then Greg Rucono, he was my coach, and he said, "And then you got one more year left. Would you like to be a student coach?" And I never really thought about coaching college, but I had 12 hours left, so I became a student coach, and then he left and went to Arkansas Tech University, and I went with him. He brought me with him to be a grad assistant. And I try to tell a lot of kids, that want to get into coaching, they want to jump right into high school. And I try to encourage kids because you learn so much football when you become a grad assistant. It's a lot of grunt work because you at the bottom of the total pole. But man, uh, going into that grad assistantship, it is a lot of grunt work. But I learned so much football, man. Like I was a grad assistant for 3 years. Learned a lot of football, a lot of different systems on both sides of the ball. And I got my bachelor's in history and my minor in coaching, and then I got my master's in physical education. And so that really set me up to be, especially because I knew I was going to eventually go into high school. I coached uh, additional 3 years of college football as a running back, assistant coach, and special teams coordinator. But then I got into the high school part of it. And, one of the most important things you try to tell kids is that they want to get into coaching, man, you got to get certified, and as much as we want to, I want to, teach PE, really right now, a lot of the schools really want the kids that's coming out of college to come into coaching to be able to teach a core class. So, if anybody's listening to this podcast and want to go into coaching, man, I encourage you to be able to teach something besides your sport. There's just more job security, especially in today's education field.
Definitely, man. Definitely. I'm gonna ask you some questions about that a little bit later, as far as balancing between in the classroom and on the field. Because that's
Hmm.
mind blowing in itself. But a question
Oh
about
yeah.
football. A question about football. How do you choose your formations or your plays to put into your playbook? How does that work?
Man, it's all about and kids do it all the time. They just don't know what they're doing. It starts off when you get your love for the game, and you start learning the game, depending on what coach you go to. But you just really building your portfolio of what you like to do, what formations you like to do. In high school, I was a big I formation guy, played left guard, and then later on became a linebacker in a 5-2 defense. So that's the first type of ball that I learned. The I formation on offense, 5-2 defense on the defensive side. And then I got into college and I played in the 3-4, 4-2-5, 3-3 stack. And then I did the same thing when I started being a grad assistant. So, when you're learning all that stuff, man, you're building your portfolio of what you want to coach, what you like to coach. I really like the defensive side of the ball, even though I got an offensive background as well. So that's how you kind of build, what formations or really wanted to say what philosophy you have, with me, man, I really fell in love with the 5-2, and then of course, that expanded now to the 3-4, and I'm a 3-4, 3-3 stack, eye front attack style guy with my defensive philosophy, and that's just the defense coordinator I was under. A guy that's the head coach at Russell, David Willard. I was his GA at Arkansas Tech, man, and he was an attack style guy that loved to send pressure every play, and I just fell in love with that. And then, my defense coordinator in high school, he was a 5-2 guy, so I stole some stuff from him, especially in the 3-man front when you're running somebody running the ball. So loading up the box and then get in the half frame and bring safety down and stuff like that. And then for my offensive philosophy, I like to smash. So that's just from that I formation, man. I like to run the ball, man. Like I'm running that ball, man. We get inside the red zone, man. We try to stuff it right there. Yeah, so, but I understand, the philosophy of the game changed from the I formation, and you got to throw the ball and pop screens, and pass the ball. My heart, man, I'm gonna smash you. So on offense, and we're gonna attack you on defense. So,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. Smash Mouth football is the best. Yeah, I
oh yeah,
absolutely,
100%.
absolutely love it. I love watching a good run play. I love watching right up the middle AB gap, either one. Man, just seeing them get it, go. You know what I'm saying? Uh, how has your coaching? How has your philosophy evolved since you first started coaching?
Man, the game now involves so much. You got to stick with your basics, so what you like and what you love, and what you learn. But you always got to be forever learning, especially in this game because it changes so fast, man. Because, at one point in time, everybody was running the ball and everybody's passing the ball, doing pop screens and everything. And then, now it's kind of going back to, people want to get tight ends in the game, try to have formation and run the ball. People kind of have forgotten how to play. So, old school tight end stuff. So, it's just one of those things, man. You just got to keep learning, keep going to clinics. We have a really good clinic here in Hot Springs, the Running Roach Clinic. That they bring in guys. They bring in all the coaches from Arkansas. And they bring in a bunch of college coaches from all over the United States, man. They come talk to us, Arkansas coaches. And so that's a really great thing that the state does, for us. And everything. So we just always trying to learn and we just always trying to keep staying on the cutting edge of stuff, man. So thank thank God for Google and YouTube. So you can also kind of cheat code on that too. So,
I hear that, man. You've said a couple different places that you've been before coming to Lakeside. Where all have
mm.
you before Lakeside? I mean, like head coaching wise.
Head coaching wise,
Yeah.
nowhere, man. I hadn't been a head coach
Oh,
anywhere. My only head coach experience was the head coach of my 707 team. Uh, my was it my freshman and sophomore year of college. I come home and said, head 707 coach in the summer.
wow.
Some of my old coaches let me do that, and that was really good. But as far as like honest head coach experience, I had none before I came to Lakeside. Um, and
Wow.
that was kind of a concern with a lot of people when I got this job. It's like, yeah, this boy, you don't know what he's doing, man. It's a 5-day program. How can he take that over, man? But I just always prepared myself. I've been, like I said, I started off at UAM as a student coach. I moved there. I went to Arkansas Tech as a grad assistant for 3 years, and then I was assistant coach, running backs coach for 3 years, special teams coordinator. Then I left there and I went to Waxahachie, Texas, which is about 35 miles south of Dallas. And I stayed there for 3 years, where I was the junior high defensive coordinator um, for 2 years, and then I moved up to varsity and I coached outside linebackers in Waxahachie, Texas. So, I really thought I was going to be a Texan. I am a Texan, but I really thought my whole family and I was going to be coaching Texas football. But my wife's from North Little Rock, and she didn't want to be a Texan, so we we uh, we had this job opening come 2014 to be assistant linebacker coach and head junior high track coach, and teach a little history. And I came down and been here ever since, man. So. That's kind of my path of how I got to Hot Springs. Kind of the short version of it.
Gotcha. No, no offense, but I put them horns down at all times. I don't.
But you know the crazy thing, and this is what I tell people. pull that name stuff for a while. I grew up in East Texas, so in East Texas, I'm old country boy man. In East Texas, man. I'm originally from Texarkana. My family is from Marshall, Tyler, Lonely, Old East Texas, and so growing up, man, I only had three channels, and that was 3, 6, and 12. And really, honestly, my favorite football team growing up was Notre Dame because NBC, forever had this big contract with Notre Dame, and that's the only football we had, man. We didn't, where I stayed at, we didn't have Texas football and all that. I was watching, Tim Brown and Ricky Waters and, Rocky Ismail and Rick Meyer and all those guys, man. And how I became a Texas guy. I didn't become a really Texas Longhorn fan until I got older, and we got cable. So we finally get cable when I get in the 10th grade, man, and then I started watching Longhorn stuff. So honestly, man, I'm a Notre Dame college football. I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I was happy for the Longhorns and Notre Dame this year. Extremely.
Man, I'm an Arkansas State Red Wolves guy. That's my
Okay,
team.
hey, I like A State too. My cousin played at A State, man. So Brandon Robbins, he played there. So love
That's
Arkansas State, man. They did great stuff for my cousin. So
that's like that's where my parents met. So that's
ah,
that and my mom lived in Jonesboro whenever like that's where she grew up. So I have
mm,
family that lives up there and stuff. So we drive by the stadium and I was a kid and I was like, "What's that?" They're like, "That's where the college team plays football." I'm like, "Oh." And then
yeah.
I got to experience a homecoming game against North Texas, and we stomped the hell out of them.
Mm,
It
yeah,
was great.
yeah.
It was first and only. Well, no, I've only went to one other college game. That was OBU. I don't even remember who
Okay.
they were playing, but either way,
Mm.
I love that. I love that. Uh, so what would you say your greatest strengths as a coach are, and how would you say you leverage them to help your players succeed?
I tell everybody, man, I'm a motivator.
Hmm.
First and foremost, I think that's one of the gifts that God gave me. I can motivate people, I can motivate kids. Through my passion of football. So I'm a motivator first. To get the kids hyped up, get them going, get them to do what we need to do, and then I'm a grinder, man. I really believe in the hard work and discipline of football. That it's a grind every day, and I really try to get my kids talking about the Lakeside Rams that really and anywhere I've been, really nice head coach. I really try to instill that guys, man, accountability, being ready to come to work every day, really being held accountable and know that, we got a big responsibility as the Lakeside Rams in this side of the community, man, and to try to put a good product out there. We ain't talking about trying to win championships and win ball games all the time. The biggest thing I want to do is put a good product out there, something that the community can be proud of, win or lose. And, and if I can do that, I think I've done my job as a coach, man. So just be a motivator, and be a grinder, and try to, grind out and show kids that hard work pays off. And then lastly, as a coach, just try to love up on the kids, man, because, see football and sports really, but I had this saying, football, used to be enough, and it's just it's just so many things that kids have to do now outside of football. All we had growing up, was, football, baseball, and basketball. They got so much stuff now, man, and I really just try to show them through my passion of this game that it's the best game in the world. If you work hard, you can achieve anything you want to.
Okay. Well, so whenever it comes to motivating players, like you were talking about, it's not just the players; it's the players and the staff, right? How do you help them to reach their full potential, whether it be in the season or outside of outside of the confines of football?
Yeah, yeah. You talking about my staff,
I'm talking about both players and staff. Like,
players and stuff?
Yeah, how do you motivate them to reach their full potential, whether it be in season, out of season, in play, out of play, whatever?
Mm. We have a thing that that we stand on, acronym is absolute, and that's something that I talk to the guys at the beginning of the off season. I got hired, in February. Something I get hired in February, which is like right in the thick of off season. So every year, around February, well, really January, around February, January, I sit down and talk to the kids of what our foundation is, and that's absolute. You can probably kind of hear us say it after the game. I say absolute, and they say no doubt. And really, we just want to leave every time we come, no doubt that we get 10%. Without going through every acronym, uh, it's what I'm trying to start off with is a good foundation, and everybody knows that from the guy that plays and makes all the touchdowns to the guy that don't even get into our and then my staff knows that as well. So, and with that, like I said, comes that grinding mentality. Now, some of the things to get them motivated, like right now in the off season, we divide up into teams. We collect points and have competitions on Friday, because Friday is game day, so that's our competition day in the off season. We're gonna have what we call the Ring Wars, which is gonna be a big competition day for the community and the parents and everybody to come see. So the kids are motivated to work hard because here in a couple of weeks, my parents gonna come out and watch me perform on the field. Even though it's off season, they're still gonna come watch me perform, so they want to be ready. And then, we get ready for spring ball in the summer. And then, of course, it's football season. So, the motivation there is just to win every game. But you have team builders, I feed the heck out of them. I'm always throwing some food in their face. So, that's a big motivation for kids, because, I like to eat. They like to eat. So, let's work hard and let's eat afterwards. So, that's one way. And like I said, we do some community and parent involvement stuff where I bring the parents out and the dads put on decals on their son's helmet, which is a big motivator because every man that's played football knows how it feels to put the decal on. And then we do tackle with moms. The moms come out and they actually learn how to tackle and go through the drills that their son go through, and try to tackle their sons, and it's a good thing. So my whole program is about community involvement, and not just players and the staff being motivated, but the whole community being motivated to try to be successful and win. So,
Okay. Um, whenever you're coaching, we're going to stick on the whole motivational thing. How do you help someone who's unmotivated? Like, how do you help
yeah.
motivate someone who's not motivated at all? You got people who go out there. I've talked to other coaches and stuff, and they've said they've had players that just didn't want to do anything. They come out, I just want to play, but they're not like going out
Mhm.
there and doing anything. They're not showing that they want to play. How do you help motivate those players?
Yeah. And those are the tough ones. You hear I heard another podcast. And that's why it's always good to listen to podcasts. So, a podcast with Greg Popovich, and he was talking about a coach's salt is to find a way and have the ability to find a way to reach that player that you're talking. The one that's selfish, the one that's unmotivated, the one that don't want to practice. He just want to show up on game day. I heard that, man, and those are the challenges as a coach. That they don't really talk about a lot. But those are the challenges as a head coach, or really any type of coach, head coach, assistant, that you really find out if you really do in this game. My coach that got me into coaching college, Coach Greg Rockwell, he told me, he said, the greatest feeling in the world. He said, you knock people out. You made tremendous plays on the football field, but he said the greatest feeling in the world is when you can take a kid and teach him how to play the game of football. And he's messed up 50,000 times in practice, but when he gets out there in the game and he performs at a high level and he finally gets it right, He said that's one of the greatest feelings in the world, and it is, man. To get a kid that's not motivated to get himself going, and if he just keeps refusing to say no, like I'm not going to do it, it's your job as the coach. Like you got to find a way, find a way to get him motivated. And a lot of times, what I do is just talk to the kid and try to build a relationship with him, and because if you're gonna come out there on the football field or join a team, like you got some type of inkling of motivation in you. Like you want to be out there. So now we got to figure out. Me as the coach got to figure out, you know, what makes you tick. And the only how you can find out in the way a person ticks is you got to have a conversation with them. And then after you have the conversation, you got to build a relationship. And then once you build that relationship with that person, they feel like they can trust you. Then they're gonna come to work every day for you. Um, and that's what I truly 100% believe that. Like, I believe I can get any kid to play for me because I'm gonna build a relationship with him, show him that I love him, respect him, and care for him. Then he's gonna play for me. So,
Right on. See, that makes a lot of sense because a lot of the times, whenever you think of motivation, it's not necessarily building that relationship with the player or anything like that. It's just like, come on, you got to get it. You got to get it. You got to go. Let's come on.
mhm,
You
mhm.
got it. You can do
And,
this. I believe in you, whatever. But you don't hear about the
yeah.
building a relationship with them that much.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes as a coach and as a player, you get caught up in that. Like it's just go 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 go. And but you as the coach got to realize I'm saying go go go, but he ain't going. And so now you gotta say, hold up, like we 50 miles down the road and you still at start. Like, all right, man, let me see what's wrong with you. Come here, dog. Let's talk to me. Let's see what the root of the problem is. And then, once you do that and dig a little bit deeper, they share it with you, and then you get them caught back up. But that's hey, if you a coach, especially in sports today, it don't matter what level. If you can go from professionals all the way down to pop one. Like if you're not trying to build relationships with the guys that you coaching, they ain't gonna play for you. Like and I don't care how good of a coach you think you are. If you don't get them kids to believe in you and trust you and build a relationship with you, they ain't gonna play for you. And each player is different. I mean, so some of them you can go and like you said, don't go bark, and that's all they do. Some of them the barking don't work. You see some coaches and a lot of young coaches make this mistake. Like I got to bark and bark at them and bark at them, and barking is necessary. But then sometimes you got to be able to say, I'm barking and I'm getting results, so I got to try a different angle and I got to try a different approach. And that's what your job is as a head coach to learn your team, through the off season, through team building, through different conversations, as a team, and you have to continue to do that all year to get yourself ready and get your programming team for
Okay. But a question I've had for a little bit is how do you instill intensity and drive into players? If you just talked about how you motivate players, even the unmotivated ones.
the fall.
How do you give them the drive? Like, we got to do this what I'm saying? How do you instill
Uh,
that?
yeah, with me, it's one thing I learned when I was coaching college at Arkansas Tech, man. In high school I went to, practice was competitive, but practice is just kind of that grind, and you kind of go through the motions a little bit, then you run afterwards. When I got to Arkansas Tech, they were Coach Mullins, the head coach there. His name is Steve Mullins, a legendary coach, man. Oh, a lot to him. But at the end of practice, every day he did a competition period, and so to where it was full blown go to the ground, about 10 to 15 minutes. It was getting really good, probably 20 minutes. But I do that a lot with my team now. Last 15, 20 minutes of practice, man, it's competition. We going at each other, going against your brother, as hard as you can in practice, just for a segment. after you've learned everything throughout the day. And so that gets them competition ready. So, if you do that every day during practice, that gets you competition ready for, when you get out there on the field on Friday, man. It makes it easier for those guys because they used to that speed of the game going 100%, So that's just, that's what we do at Lakeside.
I got you. Um, Whenever it comes to coaching, like these younger players, kids just coming from eighth grade into ninth grade, and maybe they haven't played football or anything, these less experienced players, what goes into that? What goes into teaching these people how to get into this playbook of a whole bunch of different plays, whether it be offense, defense, or both sides of the ball?
Mhm. We're blessed. A lot of schools do it now. We have Huddle. Huddle is a programming software where it keeps a lot of our film, but also keeps books, offense, defense, special team. So, we have a digital aspect to it, and so the kids can, kids love, their devices, man. So you can download the Huddle app, on your phone, and then of course they sign up, and connect it to us. And really the big thing now. Back when we were playing, you had to just write it down on paper, remember in your head. Then they got to the point to where they were making playbooks, but the kids was losing them. People was finding playbooks and stealing people's plays. But now it's more digital to where you got to have a password and all that stuff. Excuse me, to get in there. So, um, but technology, kids love devices, so they have access to the playbook 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 360. And that's one way to get them motivated. You can send out different messages like, hey, I want you to look at, go in the playbook and look at plays, 1 through 8, because we're gonna talk about that when we, get to school today. So really to get them to study their playbook is through the app, man, through the Huddle app. So shout out to Huddle.
So whenever it comes to them being on the field, like they studied up on this, they know what they need to be doing. Like I'm running a slant or I'm running a post or
Mhm.
or a out, whatever it may be. How do you get
Mhm.
them like if they've not ever played football, even pee wee or anything like that? How do you teach them with them just coming in, catching or running, proper ball positioning, anything like that? How does that
Mhm.
go into it? Like I'm sure you have to be more gentle with them about that, or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
You give them a grace period, to try to get themselves together, especially those guys that come out late. Some guys don't come out in junior high, some of them don't, so they come late. You have to, see, through drills if they really got the footwork and, the size and the strength and the weight room and the work ethic, to really compete at. And sometimes you be surprised. Some of those kids come out there and never play, or they only play 1 year in junior high. They're just genetically, ready to go. Some kids take a little bit longer, and then some of them you just have to really break down and tell them like, man, I don't know if you got the footwork or the size or speed to do this. And you try to give them some goals to set, and if they achieve those goals, everything's good. But if they don't, they come up short, then you have to really try to sell to them, what to do, and then try to put them in the right position. Like, hey, cornerback's not working out. We might try to move you on. So it's a puzzle, especially with a kid like that. I really try to encourage, the kids and the parents to, get kids into our life program. Um, that helps out a ton. Our life program is we start off with flag football and then work up the and those volunteer coaches throughout the community, the dads, we do a coaching clinic throughout the summer. And we teach them our offense, defense, special team philosophy. And then they take it to the youngsters and start teaching them until we get them in the 7th grade. So that's what we would prefer you to do. It makes it easier on us, but if you can't, then like I said, we just gotta get baby steps to see what position we can put you in to be successful.
Is that a difficult thing to do whenever you have to give them a different position if their heart's set on being this position or wanting to do this one thing? Is that a difficult
Oh,
conversation?
it's heartbreaking, man. Like I said in the beginning, like I thought I was a fullback, and I played football my whole life, So and the coach tell you. Like, you're a little bit too big to play that position. You need to play this one. And, you know, and you hope as a coach, like, well, hopefully they're successful, so I don't have to move them again. You know, they've done something they can stick with. But if they don't, that's your job too. You know, as a coach, to try to put your kids in the best position to be successful. Even if it don't work out, you're like, hey man, you're a good kid. I want you on the team. You know, I need you to be a manager. You know, and I've had a couple of kids like that where it's like, Coach Rock, I don't want to lead the team. I want to be a part. So well, you can be a manager, man, and be a part of the team, which being a manager now is totally different from back in the day. You know, it's not like you see on the movies where, they disrespectful and nobody likes them. You know, our managers on our team, man, are a big, big part of what makes our machine go. So, shout out to, our managers out there. They're a big part of any football program.
On my show, I like to talk about because I'm a big advocate of mental health, and I like to talk
Mm-hmm.
about dealing with hard situations and this and that. You seem like
Mm-hmm.
a really positive dude. I mean, this is the first actual conversation apart from about my daughter at school, because she's in one of your classes. This is the first
Yep. Yep.
conversation we've got to have. You seem like a really positive guy, but I'm going to ask, has there been times where you've had a lot of anxiety or depression or felt really out of it? And how did you deal with that?
Yeah, and that's a big topic, in today's game. Me personally, um, you have the pressure, on you to perform at a high level. I, I tell people all the time, it's so much different now because we didn't have social media to worry about, and I constantly, have to talk to, my players about staying off of social media, because it just it's so negative sometimes, especially like lost and everybody's like, this is what happened, this person's fault and this person's fault, and I tell them, man, get off of social media. Um, and this is my biggest saying, after a loss, I tell them, or disappointment or bad practice, I say, well, you know. I put the blame on me, first off, and then I tell them, if the sun rises in the morning and God let us wake up, I said we got a chance to get better. And if that happens, if the sun rises and the Lord let you wake up, you got a chance to get better from the mistake that you made the day before. And you got to let kids know that yeah, it's a big deal, but it ain't the end of the world because the sun came up. The sun came up, man. Everything is okay. And then we had a big heartbreak. We get to the semifinals, man, and we beat Farmington, and about at halftime. And we had some situations that happened, players, getting sick and stuff like that. But it wasn't the end of the world, man. We had a great season. We went 10-3, made it to the semis first time since 1975. Everything as far as the season was concerned is good. But just because you have one bad game, don't mean you have a bad season. You know, just because you have one bad this season, don't mean you got bad. And that's what I try to preach to our kids, man. And so far, so good, because we had a lot of mental obstacles we had to go through this past season, man. And I think we handled that well. Even with the loss in the semis, of course, we upset. Of course, nobody want to lose, but at the end of the day, we still a family, and the sun came up, man, so we still fine.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think staying off of social media is definitely a positive thing because there's so much negativity on social media. I mean, you can find positive stuff, but there's a lot more negative than
Mm.
positive, and you can get wrapped up in all that stuff, and it really gets you down, mess you up. So I think that's a
Yeah,
really good.
you get down that rabbit hole, man, of social media, but especially when you start. A lot of times, like I check on the kid and send him a text message. And tell him, hey man, get off that social media. I know you're looking at it. That fast. Like, nah, coach, I'm just laying in the bed. Get up, man, go outside. We'll get back to work on Sunday. So, and that's just what you got to do as a coach in today's game. Just try to tell those kids that mentally it's not the end of the world.
Right on, dude. Man, you said it, getting back to football. Last year, you had a 10-3
Mm-hmm.
season, was second in the conference and 13th in the state in the division. What had to happen
Mm-hmm.
to achieve all those things as far as your record and rankings go? What had to happen in order to achieve that? Because that was a stellar season, man.
Yeah, yeah. Just the kids put and that's all it is. If the kids come together and they did, our senior class was excellent and they came together as a group. You always got to try to set some type of goals though,
Mhm.
and try to challenge your senior group. Um, and each group is different. Each group's got their own little kind of swagger to them. They got their own kind of, negativity to them that, that you as a coach need to strengthen and work on. So you kind of set those goals in the off season and tell them what you need for them as a senior group to be able to lead the team to be successful. And last year I challenged those guys to take something serious, because they were all great athletes, but I wanted them to really come together and take something serious, that was bigger than them individually and being a team. And they did that. And you could see that on the field by the way they played. They played more for each other than anything. So, shout out to their senior class, man. 10-3, that's a heck of a season. So,
That's really good, man. My brother was with Jared McBride in whenever they went to the second round of the playoffs against Whitehall, and
hmm
that was a devastating loss. That was something crazy.
hmm
I think what he told me that coach, oh my God, what did I just say his name was?
Coach McBride.
That's the one. I don't know why that
Yeah.
slipped my brain so quickly. I just said it. But my brother told me Coach McBride said something that was very true. And I don't know, maybe you've experienced that being an assistant coach or being a coach at Lakeside. You can't beat the ref, you know.
Yeah.
He said that after the Whitehall game. You can't beat the rest, because when
hmm
you're out there watching, there's like Jeremy Sprinkles in there playing against at Whitehall and all these people, and they were catching
hmm
the ball like 3 yards out of bounds, and they were calling it in and stuff. And it's like, goodness, what are you doing?
Yeah, yeah. And the referees, man, they got a tough job, and at every level, when you said that about the referees, my mind instantly went to everybody bashing the refs in the NFL this year for the Kansas City Chiefs. So everybody, and I don't know if you're a Kansas City fan, man, but the referees were kind of favorable for my boy Mahomes in some games. So,
I'm
but
not a big Kansas City fan, man. He's like the next Tom Brady. I wasn't a Patriots fan either, so
me either. But
yeah,
but they win, man. You got to give them that, bro. They do win by any
they do
means
what they
necessary.
gotta.
But the referees in our state, man, they do as best they can. We got a referee shortage right now, and it's really all over the nation. Those guys, they're underpaid, but it's a lot of pressure, man, because it's so much money in the high school sports now, and somebody make a bad call, man, it's just like, oh my gosh, you messing up, the money flow. But that's just part of the game. I tell the kids all the time, you got to take the good with the bad. The prime example, the quarterfinal game against Robinson, we got some questionable calls that go our way. If you talk to the Robinson coaches, and then the next week, we got some questionable calls that went against us, and you just take it, man. Take the good with the bad, and pat those referees on the butt and say, man, we'll see you next time. So they do as best as they can.
I hear that, man. And was it before or after that you got to be a head coach at the Arkansas Pro Bowl? I mean, the high school All Star game for the state.
Uh, uh,
What was
uh,
Go ahead.
That was crazy, man, because I was so excited just to get nominated, and I thought I was just gonna be an assistant coach, and I was like, well, maybe whoever the head coach be, he'll be like, hey, I want you to be defense coordinator, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
woman called me back, and she's like, hey, congratulations, you're the head coach for the All Star game, and I'm like, this is my first year ever being a head coach. Like, I'm gonna be a head coach for an All Star game. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, someone teach me. So, I mean, really, I was, and I told her like twice. I was like, no, that's got to be a mistake. Like, they couldn't have voted for me. And she was like, yeah, they did. And so, but it was fun, man. A lot of hard work. But when you get to the field, and we played on a Saturday at UCA, man, and that was a really great game that we won. West Side is the best side, and because it's the West, the East and West game. So, and that was our motto during the week. West Side is the best side. We won the game on a defensive stop in the red zone. Man, they threw an incomplete pass that skipped at the back of the end zone. We win the game. Seemed like
Wow.
19 or 15 or something. I don't know. It was something crazy like
Wow.
that. So, what?
Was it a lot different than coaching like a team that you know all the players on?
Yeah, it was nerve wracking at first because you don't know these guys, and you're worried, are they gonna respond to you, or are they gonna say, man, I'm just down here at the All Star game chilling. But luckily, I had a good group of kids that we selected, throughout all the All State guys, at all the levels from 6 man all the way up to 7A, from the west side of the state. And so it was good. It was good. We won, and I learned a lot. There's also another coaching clinic that they have in Conway for the coaches, to come, and the big finale is, the All Star games for those coaches in their sports. But all the coaches come to that one, and all the sports, man. So as it's another PD, a professional development clinic that the state of Arkansas, AAA provides for us. So, but I loved it, man. But I will tell you, it was definitely
How do you handle difficult players in situations? Like maybe there's something that happens where there's a player that's just mad or they're just like fighting other players, like arguing with them or just yelling about something. How do you handle those situations?
I'm a little different. I, I like aggressive kids. I like the kid that likes to get in the fight because football is such an aggressive sport. So I don't shy away from the kid that likes to get in the fight, or I don't shy away from the kid that gets in trouble up at the school all the time that everybody wants to get rid of him. He ain't this and he ain't that. Because I was one of those kids, man, that was angry a lot, and you just trying to figure. I got bullied a little bit in junior high and all that stuff, but my outlet was football. And so when you see a kid like that, man, that's doing he getting in fights and he mad and all that stuff, you try to channel that. You don't try to tell them to get rid of it. You tell them, hey man, you want to be aggressive, you want to fight, I got a place where you can fight at. And you can fight here and you won't get in trouble if you do it like I'm telling you to do it. And once they realize that, man, and they find a way that they can channel that anger through the game of football, man, or be it wrestling, I like aggressive sports, man. So, be it whatever, being aggressive. But, I think that's one of the biggest things, probably, and I'm going political on you, but as a society, with aggressive men, like, they kind of downplay them. And I'm just like, don't downplay the aggressive man because that's his nature. You know, you got to figure out a way to try to, control it and tame it and use it for his betterment and use it also for the betterment of, the community and the football team and stuff like that. So, I don't shy away from those kids, man. I like to mix it up and get in there with them. I still try to work out a little bit so I can mix it up with them. Because if you don't, they'll try you now. So you got to be ready to mix it back up with them and show them that hey, it's okay, man. We just gotta. It's a certain way you gotta do it.
Say it's in a locker room and you've got multiple players involved in this altercation or something like that. How do you
Hmm.
bring unity to these players when they're divided like that?
Yeah. And that, that's another part of building that relationship with the kids. When you can feel the tension in the locker room. It's just like in the workplace. Somebody got to go to work and see what happens. But the good leaders, figure out a way to, either de-escalate the situation and bring it back down, or sit your team down and tell them the truth. Like, hey man, we messing up. Like we ain't doing what we supposed to do, and redirect the behavior and try to get them back on track, man. So that's the biggest thing when you have stuff like that, because things like that gonna happen.
Mhm.
Now when you take your coaching philosophy class, which is like one of the first ones you take, they don't talk about that at all. That's just something you gotta figure out. That's that on the job training. And but if you love the game, man, you'll figure out a way to get your locker room under control.
Right on, man. Um, so we talked about playoffs, championships, and this and that. And that
Hmm.
kind of in that kind of stressful, because stress ain't always bad. That's a good kind of stress, being in the playoffs, being in a championship game,
Oh yeah.
whatever it may be. In
Hmm.
those kind of stressful situations, how do you balance home life, classroom life, and on the field life?
Prayer. you know, a lot of prayer, man. And I'm not like a preacher or nothing like that, man. But I believe in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and I pray every day, and I have patience, with kids and stuff like that. How I deal with all of it, you know, like I said, prayer, family. Um, my wife, Gina Rockwell, man, she's a big part of the machine. This Lakeside football program. She loves the kids. Of course, she loves me. And then, but a lot of what I have to deal with as a father, um, she takes that burden off of me during the season. So she handles a lot of that load and lets me really focus in on the football players. As far as my kids in the classroom, I try to just let them know and be upfront with them. It's football season, but at the same time, I don't. I don't try to make it, like something that I try to just fluff off. I go in the classroom every day with a game plan, and I try to teach the kids the best I can. And I'm upfront and transparent with my students in the classroom. Like I'm gonna mess up, or I'm gonna forget something because I have a lot going on. And I tell them, have grace on me for messing up, and I have grace on you when they mess up in the classroom. So it's just another way of building relationships with kids and letting them understand your situation and being transparent and showing your heart to the kids. And a lot of times the kids respond, and kids gonna be kids, but they be like, hey, hey, we gotta, hey y'all, let's stop acting up because Coach Rob got a big game coming up, man. We got to beat Lake Hamilton, and the kids and the community really get into it. So. Uh, it's stressful. It is a workload, but that's what you signed up for too. So, you
What made you choose to come to Lakeside, man?
um, you know, my good friend Ryan Wallace, he's the defense coordinator, and he just kept calling me every year after I moved to Waxahachie, and he just kept telling me, "I'm gonna get you back to Arkansas, man." And when they finally called me, Coach McBride, Jerry McBride, called me and said, you interested, man? We want to bring you up on the interview. And I just fell in love with it. Hot Springs is really good. Lakeside is really good. Luckily, my wife, being from, she graduated from North Little Rock, but she was a pageant girl and always in Hot Springs and for the Miss Arkansas pageant. So she knew Hot Springs really well, knew people here, and we just instantly fell in love with it when we came on the interview. We drove from Waxahachie. I brought my whole family here. I think we left about 6 o'clock that morning, drove straight to Hot Springs. I pulled over at the Big Red and changed. threw my clothes on. Now this is 2014 now, and so I threw my clothes on at that gas station right there. Of course, it looks totally different now, but and then I go and I have my interview, and I think I did a pretty good job because they offered it to me right there on the spot. So and and I took it. I just thought it was a good opportunity. And what they were selling. As far as coming here, I was down. And it's been a good partnership, um, and a good transition, and a really good move for my family and my career.
Last question I got before I do my little wrap up thing that we're going to be doing at the end. What's the most
Okay.
difficult part about being a coach and teacher?
Just trying to balance both, um, and not let one, uh, be, overtaken by the other. And that's the most challenging part, being a coach and a teacher, because it's 100% easy to let the excuse me, to let the coaching overtake the teaching, and sometimes that happens. Just the nature of the beast, especially if you got a away game. You deal with might be out a JV team. You might have a JV away game. It might be a junior high home game you got to stay at, and then you got your away varsity game. And then you got to try to teach the kids about primary, secondary sources at the same time. So it's just trying to balance that, man. And you can say that about anything in life, but it's just trying to find that balance, and it is difficult, and for those two, because they both fighting for each other's time. Being a coach and a teacher, because you got a different group of kids, that you're trying to service and do a good job for. So definitely the
Right on, man. Well, normally at the end of each show, I'm a big supporter of gratefulness. Very big on being grateful for things because, gosh, man, there's so many things to be grateful for in life. So at the end of each
Mhm.
show, I usually I'll say three things I'm grateful for, and then I give my guest that same opportunity. For me, mine don't change that often.
Okay.
One is my support system, whether it's professional wrestling, whether it's music, making audio dramas, this podcast, whatever it is I'm doing. Without my support system, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. My wife, my two daughters, my mom, my dad,
Mhm.
brother, everybody. I wouldn't do
Mhm.
this at all. The second thing is, well, you, the guests that are on the show, because Coach, I mean, I'm being honest, man, you didn't have to come on here. I mean, I'm just some guy that likes talking to people. So I really
Mhm.
appreciate very grateful for the opportunity to get to chat it up with you about football, about the Rams and everything else. So I'm very grateful for
Yeah, no
that.
problem. No problem.
The third thing is kind of a two for one. My health, because I'm doing better. I had an accident September last year, and finally getting
Mhm.
better, being able to get up, move around, do all kinds of stuff good. So very grateful for that.
Mhm.
The other is my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, because without God, without God, everything is impossible, but with him, nothing is impossible. So
Well, 100%.
Coach Ruck, what are three things you're grateful for in this moment?
Yeah, like you said there, man, I'm definitely grateful, for my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and giving me grace, and giving me grace, because I am not perfect at all, but with Him, He renews me every day. Secondly, my wife, um, man, she's my big support system, and my family. You put it all out there, just talking about, your wife and your kids. And I'm the same, man. My wife, my kids, my mom and dad. My grandparents. Now they all passed away, dead and gone now. But when they were living, they did a big thing and helped me. And I'm grateful for Lakeside, man. I really am. People see the whole football thing at Lakeside, but my three kids all learn how to read at Lakeside. My all my three kids, they're getting their education from there. And of course, my kid's not perfect, you know, and nobody's kids are, but what you hope is that you can get them in a place to where they feel comfortable, have fun, and that their imperfections are worked out through a good school system. And Lakeside has provided that for my family. So I'm grateful for, like I said, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, my family, and Lakeside, man. They've done some wonders for my kids.
Man, I appreciate you coming on, Coach. It means a lot to me. You know, I know you're busy getting ready for the season coming up later in the year. You got spring ball coming up where you're going to be working with
Hmm.
the players and everything like that. How's the season looking coming up?
Man, guys working hard, man. You know, kind of like I said earlier, not kind of what I said earlier is they're working really hard for our Ram Wars. You know, our big competition day against each other, and the community is gonna come out and watch what we've been doing in off season. You know, they hear about it from the kids, but they actually really come to see. And that'll be April 29th, down on the Rams field. You know, we're gonna have music, something to eat out there. Just watch the kids just get after it and compete against each other. But you know, we're getting ready for the season, man. We want to try to make another run at it, you know, like we did this past year, and they're working hard trying to get there.
Hopefully you can get it, man. I've been at Lakeside. I've been at Lakeside since I was 5 years old. So, I mean, you know,
Mhm.
I'm a hard Lakeside guy myself. So go
Yeah.
Rams, man. Go Rams.
Hey, go Rams, go, man. Go Rams, go.
Thank you, Coach. Hey, you have a great rest of your night, man.
Hey, no problem, man. Thanks for having me, man. It was great.